Hello everybody, my name is Bobby Iliev, and for the past 7 years I've been working as a Linux system administrator and a DevOps engineer. A few months ago I wrote an open source ebook on how to get started with Git. In the next few videos you're going to learn how to use Git and mainly the essential commands that you need to get your job done. I'll put a link to the GitHub project where you can download the open source ebook. One thing that you would need is a Bash terminal where you're going to run all of the Git commands that you're going to learn in this video series. If you don't have a Bash terminal, you could use this interactive terminal here. I'm going to put another link in the video description to this website. Git is without a doubt the most popular version control out there. Git was created by Linus Torvalds, who is also the creator of Linux. You would want to use Git whenever you're working on a project, either by yourself or a larger team. Git allows you to track the changes made to your project, so you know what has changed in your application, and you can also revert back specific changes in case that they break your application. Version control in general allows teams to work together on the same project. For example, you would have a main branch where you would have your project living on, and then each developer would work on a separate feature branch where they would add the new features for the application. In order for you to be able to follow along, you would need to have Git installed on your machine, or you can use the interactive terminal, which I will share a link to below in the description. To check if you have Git installed, you can run the following command: git ---- version. For example, here I'm using ZSH as my terminal, and I have Git version 2.29.2 installed. If you don't have Git installed, I'll share a link in the video descriptions on how you can do that. In this video, we're going to learn some basic shell commands. So let's head to our terminal and let's start with the ls command. The ls command shows you the content of the current folder. As you can see, currently the folder is completely empty. So let's go ahead and create a new file. We can do that with the touch command. Essentially, this creates just an empty file. So let's call it test.txt. Now again, if I run the ls command, I'll be able to see the new file that we created. Another useful command is the mkdir command, which creates new directories or folders. So if we run mkdir, and then let's call the directory test, if I hit enter, and then if I run ls again, I'll be able to see that we now have a test folder as well. Another useful command is the echo command. Echo allows you to echo out a string on your screen. So for example, let's say hello. As you can see, we've got the hello here outputted on our screen. We can also forward the output to a specific file with this symbol. So if we type echo hello followed by this greater than symbol, we can forward the output to the test.txt file that we created. Now inside the test.txt file, we have the hello string. If you wanted to check the content of the file, we could use the cat command. So if I do cat, then followed by the test.txt file, I'll be able to see the content of that file. Another useful command is the rm command, which allows us to delete files and folders. So let's go ahead and delete the test.txt file. If I run that and then run ls again, I can see that the test.txt file is gone. If I wanted to delete the folder, I would get an error because that's a directory. For a directory, you need to specify the -r, which stands for recursive flag. So rm -r followed by the name of the directory. If we hit enter and then run ls again, we can see that the current directory is completely empty again. Now that we have Git installed on our machines, the next thing that we want to do is do some Git configuration, so that when we do some commits, the commits would be associated with our user. To do so, head to your terminal and run the following command: git config --global, and then we want to configure our user.name, and we want to associate each commit with the user that we specify. So I'll just put Bobby Iliev. Then the next thing that you want to set up is your email address as well. So do the same thing, git config -- global user dot, this time we would put email, and then here specify your email address. Then if you check the git configuration file at the root of your user's directory, so just type cat ~/.gitconfig, and there you'll be able to see the details for the current user. Now, if we do some commits, they'll be associated with the user that we've just specified here. Another configuration that you might want to do is to specify your default editor. If you have been using Linux, you might be used to using Vim or Nano. As this is just a basic introduction, I would set the default editor to Nano. To do so, let's run the git config command again, and this time let's specify core.editor. And here, specify the name of the editor that you want to use. I would go for Nano. As of recently, GitHub has changed the default branch from master to main. This change has not yet been incorporated into Git itself, so you can set the default branch for your Git installation to main as well. To do so, you can again use the git config -- global command, followed by init.default branch, and here we can put main. With that, we have our Git configuration all set up, and we are ready to proceed and create our first Git repository. In this video, we're going to initialize our first Git repository. So let's get over to our terminal, and the first thing that we want to do is create an empty directory. To do that, we will use the mkdir command. mkdir, followed by the name of the folder. I'll call this new project. Now, if I use the ls command, I'll be able to see the new directory that we've just created. Then with the cd command, I can access that new directory. After that, in order to initialize a new project, I'll run the git init followed by a dot command. The dot stands for the current directory that we are in. As you can see, a new empty Git repository has been initialized in this current directory. Now, if I was to run the ls command followed by an a flag, which stands for the hidden files, I'll be able to see a new directory that was created here called .git. As it starts with a dot, it's a hidden file, or more, it's a hidden folder. As I'm using ZSH, I can see that I'm currently on the main branch. In the previous video, we initialized our first Git repository. In this video, we're going to learn the git status command. This is one of my favorite commands. I always run it before I make any commits. So if we head back to our terminal, we can see our empty Git repository here. As you can see, there are no files or folders besides the .git directory. To check the status of your repository, what you need to do is run the git status command. At the moment, there are no commits, and we can see that we are on the main branch. Let's quickly add a new file. As we learned in one of the previous videos, we're going to use the echo command, and let's say hello world, and let's save that into a readme.md file. Now, if we do a git status again, we can see that there are no commits yet, but there are some untracked files. Mainly the new file that we just created. In this video, we're going to learn how to use the git add command to add files to the current Git repository. So if we go back to our terminal and if we again run git status, we'll be able to see that currently there is one untracked file called readme.md. To add the file to Git, you need to run the following command: git add followed by the name of the file. Run that, and then if I run git status again, we'll be able to see that the file is now added and it's a new file, but it has not been committed yet. You might don't want to specify the name of each file in case that there are multiple files that you want to add. So let's quickly create a few files. If we use the touch command, let's call the first file file1.txt, file2.txt, file3.txt. Now, if you run git status again, we can see that there are 3 files at the moment. So rather than typing git add followed by the name of the file, what we could do is use the git add followed by a dot. Then this would add all of the files inside the current directory to Git. Now if you run git status again, we'll be able to see that all of the 3 new files were added. In this video, we're going to learn how to do git commits. If we head to our terminal and run the git status command again, we can see that currently we have 4 files that have not been committed yet. To commit something, you need to run the git commit command. What you could do is also specify the -m flag, which stands for message. This is essentially our commit message. It is important to write good commit messages so that people would know what has changed by your commit. As this is our first commit, we can just put here first commit. If we run that, we can see that 4 files were changed. If we do git status now, we can see that there's nothing to be committed. Let's go ahead and modify one of the files. So for example, let's say git is awesome, and let's add this to our readme file. The reason why I'm adding 2 greater than signs is because the string will be appended to the file. If we add just 1, the whole file will be deleted and the new string will be added. So if I run that and then check the status of the readme file, we can see that we have the git is awesome text right under the first line here. Now, if we run git status again, we can see that this file has been modified. What we can do now is run git commit without specifying the flag, and you see that we need to first run git add followed by the name of the file, and then run git commit. If you don't run git add, nothing will happen because you need to first stage your changes before committing them. So if you run git commit, now as you can see, I didn't specify the -m flag, so a default text editor is being open where we can actually type our commit message. So let's say changed readme.md file. And if we save that and exit, this is going to do the commit. If we run git status again, there's nothing to be committed. In this video, we're going to learn how to check what files have changed since our last commit. So if we head back to our terminal, currently we have no changes. So let's go ahead and make a change. I would use nano this time and edit the readme.md file. Let's put an exclamation mark here, and also let's add some more lines here. Okay, so I think that's enough. You can save the file with Ctrl O and then enter, and then to exit just hit Ctrl and X. Now if we run git status again, we can see that the file was modified, but git status doesn't tell us what has actually changed. To see the changes, you can use the git diff command. If you run that, we can see that the readme.md file has been changed, and then below you can see what actually changed. For example, this line was updated and we added a new sign here, then we had a few new lines here. For example, there was an empty line, then a hello there line, and then a few more lines below. If we make a change to another file, so let's edit the file1.txt and let's say file1 here. And if we save that and exit again, and then if we run git diff again, here we can now see that we have 2 files that were changed. So first it was the readme.md file with the changes that we made, and then the second file is the file1.txt. Again, here we can see that it's only 1 line that was added. You can exit this window by hitting the Q button. Okay, now if we run again git status, we can see that 2 files were modified, and let's go ahead and stage both. With the git add command, we can stage them by specifying their names after the git add command. So if I run that, then if I run git status again, I can see that the 2 files were modified and were staged. So we can go ahead and commit them. Git commit, and let's say update readme.md. Usually it's really important to specify good commit messages, but as we're doing just a demo, we can keep it simple. So if I hit that, Git is letting us know that 2 files were changed. It also shows us how many lines were updated and how many lines were deleted. Now if we run git status again, we can see that there are no more changes. This is going to be pretty much it for this video. This is how you can check what changes have been made to your files before committing them. I always tend to run the git diff command before committing anything. In this video, we're going to learn how to check the git commit history by using the git log command. So let's get to our terminal, and currently we don't have any changes. So what we can do is run git log, and this would show us all of the commits that we've made so far. Currently we have done 3 commits. So as you can see, this was the first commit. You have here the commit ID, which is a unique identifier of each commit. Then you have the author. That's the name that we specified in the initial video when we did the git configuration, and then followed by our email address. You also have the date when the commit was created and the commit message. The same goes for the other 2 commits that we have here. To exit the screen, just hit the Q button. If you wanted to see what has changed after a specific commit, so let's say we wanted to see what has changed since this second commit here. If we do git diff followed by the commit ID, then we can see what the changes were. As the git log provides a lot of information, what you could do is add the one-line tag. One-line tag, just like that. And then you can see only the commit ID and the commit message, rather than the more detailed information. In this video, we're going to learn how to exclude certain files from a Git project. For example, if you have a website that's connecting to a database, you would not want to commit your configuration file, as it contains credentials for your database, and that would be a security flaw. Okay, so if we head over to our terminal and if we run git status, currently there are no changes here. So in order to specify which files should be excluded from the Git repository, what you need to do is create a .gitignore file. If we open that, here we can specify a list of files that should not be tracked by Git. So let's start with a config.php file. If I exit and then run git status, as you can see, we have the gitignore file here. So let's quickly add that and commit. I'll just put add gitignore file. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a config.php file. And now if we run git status, we would not see the config.php file in here because Git knows that it should ignore it, as it's already specified in the gitignore file. Let's go ahead and do that with another file. If we open the gitignore file again, and let's specify .env here. So if we go ahead and create a .env file here again and run git status, we can see that the .env file is not listed here. But if we created another file, let's say that we use the touch command and create an index.html file, and then run git status again, we can see that the file is here and Git knows that it should track it. So let's go ahead and add it, git add, git commit, and I just say add index.html file. Here we do git status again. There's nothing to be committed, and if we run the ls command, we can see the new, even if we add the -a flag, so we can see the hidden files, we can see the new config.php, the .env file, but they are not tracked by Git. So far, we have been using Git only locally on our machines. But in most cases, you would have a remote repository hosted on one of the popular platforms like GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, where you would push your changes. For now, we're going to use GitHub. So if you open your browser and head to github.com, you can sign up for a free account. GitHub is really great. You could follow people, you can sponsor them. You could also see what projects they're working on, and you could also see their activity. Once you have your GitHub account ready, you can create a new repository by clicking the plus sign up at the top right. Then hit the new repository button. Here you can choose a name for your repository. Let's go for Git demo. Then after that, you can choose if your project should be public or private. If you're building an open source project, you should go for public. And if you don't want people to see what you're working on, you can go for private. I'll go for private, and then I would hit the create repository button here. In a few seconds, the new repository will be ready, and then you can follow the steps here on how to clone it. There are a few ways to authenticate with Git. You could either use HTTPS. This means that every time you would need to specify your GitHub credentials, or you could use SSH. For that, you would need to generate SSH keys first, and then add them to your GitHub account. Once you have that ready, you can follow the steps here for a new repository, but as we already have a repository locally, we can follow the steps here. So I'll just copy this command here, head back to my terminal, and run it. What this essentially does is to add the new GitHub repository that we've created to our local Git project. So we can check the git config file here with the cat command, and we can see that now we have a remote section here pointing to our remote GitHub repository. Now, if we go back, here they're showing us how to rename the current branch. As we already are using main, we don't need to run that. And then with this command here, we can actually push our local repository to our GitHub repository. So if I run this, as I already have an SSH key, I didn't have to type my credentials, and the changes have now been pushed. If I go back to GitHub and refresh this page, I can see all of the files that we created locally on GitHub. We can also see the commit history, just as we would when we run the git log command. So you see the git commit message, the person who made the commit, and the commit ID here. You can even see more information about each commit by clicking on it. For example, with the last commit, we updated our git ignore file and we added an extra line. So let's go ahead and make another change. Let's go ahead and update our index.html file, and let's say, hi there. Save that. Then again, with git add, let's add it. Then with git commit, let's say, updated index.html file. And now we can do git push origin and then the name of the branch, which is main, because we're working currently on the main branch. So if we push that, then go back to Git, click on our repository. Then, as you can see, 16 seconds ago, a change was pushed, and we can see the commit message here. And if we click on the file, we can see the new change that we made. In this video, we're going to learn how to pull the latest changes from the remote Git repository to our local repository. In most cases, you will be working with many people on the same project. So when somebody pushes their changes to the remote GitHub repository, then you might want to pull them to your local one. So to simulate that, let's go ahead and edit one of the files. So I'll go ahead and edit this index.html file. And let's just change this line here to an h1 tag. And if you scroll down at the bottom, again, you can specify the commit message, and let's say updated index.html on GitHub. And I'm going to commit this to the main branch directly. So at the moment, the index.html file has been updated and it has the h1 tags. But if you go to our local repository and we check the index.html file here, you can see that the h1 tags are still not here. If we go to GitHub again and check the commit history, we can see that 20 seconds ago we made that commit. But if we run git log locally, this commit is not present. So in order to get the latest changes from the remote repository, you need to use the git pull command. So if we do git pull origin and then the name of the branch, if we run that, as you can see, now we got the last commit and we also got the new change to the index.html file. So now if I was to check the content of the index.html file again, we can see that the h1 tags are present. In the last video, we learned how to push our changes to GitHub, and in this video, we learned how to pull the latest changes from GitHub to our local repository. In this video, we're going to learn about Git branches. In most cases, when you're working on a project with other people, you would work on a separate branch where your new features would live in. Once you're ready with the new changes, you would merge your branch to the main branch. This would look something like that. So you have your main branch where your active application lives. And then whenever you're adding new changes, you would create a separate branch. Then you would do your commits on that branch. And whenever you're ready, you would merge your feature branch to the main branch. So let's see how this works in action. Currently, if we run git branch, we'll be able to see that we are on the main branch. If you wanted to create a new branch, we could again run the git branch command followed by the name of the branch that we want to create. So let's say we're adding a contact form. So we could say something like feature contact form. If you run that, and then if you run git branch again, we'll be able to see the new branch created here. However, as you can see, we are still on the main branch. To switch on to the new branch, what we need to do is run the checkout command. So if you run git checkout followed by the name of the branch, you'll be switched to the new branch. So let's quickly create a file here. Let's call this touchcontact.html. So now on the new branch, we have this new file. Let's go ahead and add it. And let's go ahead and commit it. Okay, now with that, we have made the commit to the new branch. If we run ls again, we can see the contact.html file here. But now if we were to switch to the main branch, so we switch back to the main branch. And now if we run the ls command again, you can see that the contact.html file is not in here because it's still living on the old branch. So if we go back to this little graph again, so we made that commit here, and this commit contains the contact.html file, which is only present on the new branch and not on the main branch. In the next video, we're going to learn how we can merge the changes from a specific branch to the main branch or the other way around. The same goes for here. So let's say we created a new file here. Let's call this file about.html. And let's go ahead and add it and commit it. Now if we run ls, we can see the about.html file here, and we're on the main branch. If we were to switch to the feature branch again, just copy this from here. And if we run ls again, as you can see, the about.html file is not here. We only have the contact.html because the commit that we made was on the main branch. So it went something like that. We were on the main branch, there were some commits, then we created a new branch. We did a commit on the new branch, then we checked out back to the main branch, and then we made another commit there. Let's go back to the main branch. Another shortcut that you could use is rather than running git branch, then the name of the branch, and then running git checkout to switch to the new branch, you could use the git checkout -b, which stands for branch, and this would create a new branch and switch you to the new branch automatically. So let's say feature 1. As you can see, we were switched to the new branch straight away. So the branch was created and we were switched to the new branch straight away. In the previous video, we learned how to work with Git branches and how to make changes to a specific branch. In this video, we're going to learn how to carry over those changes from the specific branch to the main branch. So in the last video, we created a feature branch called feature contact form, where we added a contact.html file. Now, if we switch back to the main branch with the git checkout command, as you can see, now we're on the main branch, or also you can check that with the git branch command. And if we were to run the ls command, here you can see that we've got about.html, but we don't have the contact.html. What you could do is actually run git diff followed by the name of the branch, and it will show you that differences between your current branch, which in our case is the main branch, and the feature branch. So if I run that, I can see that there is an extra file here. So let's go ahead and merge it. We can do that with the git merge command. Git merge, followed by the name of the branch. If I run enter, then we are asked to put a commit message here. I'll just leave it as it is. So now we can see that the feature branch was merged and the contact.html file was carried over. If I run the ls command, I can see the contact file and the about file as well. If we were also to check the git log, we can see that the merge was actually added as a commit. So this is going to be pretty much it for this video, as this is only a Git introduction. I'm not going to go too deep and show you how to solve merge conflicts. If you want to learn more about that, I would recommend checking out my open source ebook, where you see how to solve merge conflicts. In this video, I'm going to show you how to revert a change in case that you make a mistake. So if we head over to our terminal and let's go ahead and make a quick change. Let's open the contact.html file and let's add some information here. Let's just put wrong commit content and let's save that. So now if we go ahead and do git commit, and what you could do is add the A and M flags. So that way we don't have to run git add beforehand. We just put a short message here. Let's put wrong commit. If we run that, so now if we run git status, there's nothing to commit. But what you could do is run git log and we can see the commit here. Let's say that we don't want to have that information in our contact.html in order to revert the last commit. So in order to revert this commit here, what we can do is run the git reset command and then specify the -- soft flag. This means that the changes that we did to the file will be kept, but the commit will be reverted. And we can specify that we want to go back just one commit. Now if we run git log again, as we can see, we don't see the last commit anymore. But if we check the status of the file, the content is still here. And if we run git status, we can see that the file was modified. So let's go ahead and change the file a little bit more. And let's say something like on commit to reset. So now we have two lines. We can see that the file was modified. If we check the content of the file, we see the two lines here. And if we run git diff, we can see what actually changed. Let's go ahead and commit that again. So I'll just run git commit again with the AM flags. So A stands for add and then M stands for the commit message. I'll just put wrong commit 2. Run that, and then if we run git log again, we can see the commit message here. And if we check the content of the file, we can see the lines here. So now if we run git status, there's nothing to commit. Let's say that we wanted to revert the commit and the changes as well. What we need to do is again run the git reset command, but this time we need to specify the hard flag instead of the soft flag. So if I put hard instead of soft here, and then again I can specify that we want to go just one commit back. So if I run that, we can see that the last commit was reverted and the changes that we made with it were also reverted. So if I was to check the file content again, we can see that it's empty. Now if we run git status again, there's nothing to commit, but also if we run git log, the last commit is also gone. So this is one way of reverting a change in case that you've made a mistake. The main takeaway is that if you want to keep your changes, you need to use the soft flag, and if you want to get rid of the changes and the commit, you need to use the hard flag. You can specify how many commits back you want to go with the head flag followed by the tilde and the number of commits. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can clone different projects from GitHub to your local machine so that you can start working on some projects locally on your laptop. So if we head over to GitHub, and what I'm planning to do is clone this Introduction to Git and GitHub ebook repository, and I'm planning to update the README file and include a link to the video course that I'm just recording in the README file. So as you can see, currently it just says coming soon, but as we are almost ready with the mini video course, I'm going to update the information here and add a link to the playlist that we have on YouTube. This playlist includes all of the videos that we've recorded so far. So the first thing that I want to do is click on the code button and then copy the clone URL here. So if I copy that and then head over to my terminal, at the moment I'm currently in the demo project that we've been working on. So let's exit that folder. Now I'm inside the projects folder, and what I can do is use the git clone command to clone the repository from GitHub locally to my laptop. So I would just do git clone and then paste the URL that I've copied. As it starts with git add, this means that I'm using SSH, as we already covered in one of the first videos. So if I run that, this is going to ask me for my SSH key passphrase. And then once I enter that, it would start cloning the content of the repository from GitHub to my laptop. So now if I use the ls command, I can see that we have the introduction to Git and GitHub ebook directory here. Using the cd command, I can access the directory, and now if I run pwd, I'm now inside the directory. I could actually run git log and see all of the commits that I've done in the past for that repository. Now, what I want to do is edit the README file. Actually, before doing that, let's quickly create a new branch so that we could practice that as well. Currently, we are on the main branch. So if I run git branch, I can see that I'm on the main branch. Let's go ahead and create a new branch with a git checkout -b command. And let's call this video course. Hit enter. Now I've switched to the new branch, and now I can edit the README file and go to the coming soon line. So let's delete that. And I have already prepared the text that I want to put in. I'll just copy it from here so that you don't have to watch me type it. Basically, I'm just saying that whoever prefers watching videos rather than reading the book, they can find the video right over there. I'll save that. Now, if I run git status, I can see that this file was modified. And if I run git diff, we can see that the coming soon line was deleted. And then we can see the 2 new lines here. Okay, so now if we do git add and add the file, and then if we do git commit and add the commit message saying add link to video course. Commit that, and now what we can do is push this branch to GitHub and then create a pull request for this branch to be merged to the main branch. So let's see that in action. What we would do is run git push origin and then the name of the new branch. If I run that, then type my passphrase. Now Git is providing me with a URL that I could actually visit to create a pull request. We're going to cover pull requests more in depth in the next video. If I visit it, I'm able to provide some description on what this pull request does. I would just say that it adds a link to the video course. Then if we scroll a little bit down, we can actually see what has changed. And here we can see that the coming soon line is gone, and the 2 new lines that we've just added, actually 3 new lines because there was an empty line here. Now, the important part here is that we are merging the video course branch to the main branch. If you were working with other people, you would add somebody to review your change. For example, I can add here my brother as a reviewer, and then I can create the pull request by hitting this button here. Now, as you can see, we have one pull request here. Actually, if we click on that, you can see the pull request, and then you can see the details about the pull request. You can see the commits that were made. You can see which branch is going to be merged into the main branch. And we can also see the files that were changed and the actual changes. A pull request is just like merging one branch to another, but via GitHub. As this is just a minor change, I'm not going to wait for my brother to approve it, and I'm just going to hit the merge pull request button here. I would confirm the merge. Now, this was merged, and I'm actually going to delete the video course branch as we don't really need it. Now, if we go to the repository again, we are on the main branch. And now if we scroll down, we can see that the video course section has been updated. And if we click on the link, it takes us to the YouTube playlist. In this video, we're going to put together all of the things that we've learned so far. So what we're going to do is clone a repository, then create a new branch, make a change to the code, or in our case, it would be just the README file, then stage the changes with git add. After that, commit the changes with git commit, then push the changes and open a pull request. Another thing that we're going to cover is how to fork a Git repository. The reason why you need to do a fork is because by default, you would not have access to push any changes to a public repository unless you are the owner of the repository or a maintainer of that repository. I'll quickly show you. So if we go ahead and clone this repository here, that's the official Laravel repository. So if we head over to our terminal and do git clone, and then paste the URL, just quickly type my passphrase. Okay, now, so if I go to the Laravel directory that we've just cloned, and let's quickly make a small change. So let's say the README file, and let's say just hi. If we do git status, we can see that this file was modified, and then if we do git commit -am, and then just do test commit. Now, so far it worked because we made the change only locally to our cloned repository. But now if I try to push the change, so let's do git push origin and then put the name of the branch. Then if I quickly type my password, I'm going to get a permission denied error because I'm not the owner of that repository. If you are planning to contribute to some open source projects that you don't have access to, what you need to do is first click on the fork button here. Let's practice that with the Laravel project. So what we're going to do is do some minor updates to the README file. So as this is under the DevDojo organization, what I could do is fork the repository. Click on the fork button, then I can choose my account. What this essentially does is to copy the repository from the original account over to my account. So as you can see here, it indicates that this repository was forked from the DevDojo/Laravel project over to my account. So now if I was to copy this URL, then head over to my terminal, and I could do git clone again, and then paste that. I can now make changes to this project. If we go back to the workflow chart, so now we've cloned the repository. Now let's go ahead and create a new branch. So let's say git checkout -b, and let's say readme updates, because we are just going to update the readme file. This created the new branch. Now let's go ahead and check the graph again. Let's make some changes. Let's edit the readme file, and let's put the dot here that's missing. Okay, so now if we do git status, we can see that this was modified, and if we do git diff, we can see that this line was updated. Okay, I know this is just a really minor change, but I'm trying to show you the overall workflow and not really focus on any code changes. Okay, so if we go ahead and do a git add and stage the file, then if we do git commit, and let's just put add a missing full stop. Okay, so now if I was to push this to GitHub and type my password, this would be pushed under my fork. So as you can see, this was pushed to github.com/myusername and then the name of the project. So what we can do now is open a pull request and merge the changes from my fork to the actual repository. So if we head over to this URL here, as you can see, we are going to merge my copy of the repository from the README updates branch over to the main branch on the DevDojo Laravel repository. So even though I didn't have access to the DevDojo Laravel repository, I was able to first fork it and then make the changes to my repository, and now I'm able to submit a pull request from my forked repository to the actual project. Usually there is a pull request template which you need to follow. You need to specify all of the things that are required here, but as this is just a demo, I'm going to skip it, as all that we did was to add a full stop. Okay, now I can hit the create a pull request button, and now this pull request would be opened under the DevDojo Laravel project. As you can see, the pull request is here, and now the maintainer of the repository will be able to review the changes and merge them if they want to. So this is more or less it. This is how you can fork a repository that you don't have access to, clone it locally on your laptop, make some changes on a separate branch, push those changes to GitHub, and then open a pull request from your forked repository to the actual repository. Now with that knowledge, you should be able to go out there and contribute to some great open source projects. And well done for completing this Introduction to Git and GitHub mini video course. If you have enjoyed the content so far, make sure to start the project on GitHub. As a next step, I could suggest linking up your GitHub account with DigitalOcean and deploying a static website to their app platform. Actually, the Introduction to Git and GitHub static website is running on the DigitalOcean app platform for free. Thank you for watching, and to support this channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll see you next.